Superscope Storyteller presents Puss in Boots.
Once upon a time, a very old miller died and left his possessions to his 3 sons. The oldest son got the mill. The second son received the miller's faithful donkey. And the youngest son was given nothing but a cat. The poor young son was quite sad to learn of his inheritance.
My brothers may well earn a living by using their possessions, but all I have is this cat. I can eat him and make a muff of him, but when he is gone, I shall surely starve to death.
The cat, who had heard all of this, climbed up into his master's lap and spoke in a serious manner.
My good master, my name is Puss, and I, for one, would not enjoy becoming a muff, nor would I enjoy being eaten. But if you will listen, I have a plan that will bring you all you desire. Give me a bag and fetch me a pair of leather boots. I will roam the countryside, and you will soon learn that your inheritance is not so bad.
When the cat had been outfitted as he requested, he set forth into a field where there were many rabbits. Setting the bag out and filling it with carrots and lettuce, he lay down beside it and pretended to be dead. Before long, a fat young rabbit came running along and jumped into the bag. Puss quickly closed the top and took it to the palace of the king. He asked if he might speak with the king, and was taken to the king's throne room. There, he placed the rabbit before the king and made a low, reverent bow.
I have brought you, sir, a rabbit from the estate of my master and noble lord, the Marquis of Carabas, as he commanded me.
There really was no Marquis of Carabas, for it was a name that Puss had made up and given his master. The king was quite pleased with the gift.
Tell your master that I thank him, and that he has done me a great pleasure.
The following day, Puss went out and hid himself among some tall corn. As soon as some partridges landed to eat the corn, he quickly opened his bag and captured them. Then he made a present of them to the king, as he did before with the rabbit. The king was very pleased and gave him some money. He also told Puss to thank the Marquis of Carabas. Puss continued to bring game to the king, and soon the Marquis was well known in the court as a generous man. Now it so happened that the king had a daughter, who was the most beautiful princess in the kingdom. One day, when the king and his daughter were planning to take a ride in the royal carriage, Puss found out and went to his master with a clever plan.
If you will follow my advice, your fortune will be made this day. All you have to do is go and wash yourself in the river at a place where I show you. Leave the rest to me.
The make-believe Marquis of Carabas did as Puss asked him to without knowing why. While he was washing, the king and his daughter passed by in their coach. Then Puss began to cry out.
Help! Help! My lord, the Marquis of Carabas, is going to be drowned!
At this, the king stuck his head out of the coach window and saw the cat who had brought him so many fine presents. He commanded his guards to save the Marquis at once. While they were pulling the Marquis out of the river, the cat approached the king's carriage.
My lord, I am glad you came along. While I was trying to save my master, someone came along and stole all of his clothes.
The truth was that the cunning Puss had hidden all his master's clothes under a large rock. When the king heard Puss's story, he ordered a servant to fetch one of his best suits for the Marquis. When he was dressed, the king thanked him for the many presents that the cat had brought and invited him to share the carriage. The fine clothes made the Marquis of Carabas even more handsome than before, and the king's daughter immediately fell in love with him. The cat, quite overjoyed that his plan was beginning to succeed, marched on before the carriage. He soon met some countrymen who were mowing a meadow.
Good people, you who are mowing, if you tell the king that this meadow you mow belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you shall be rewarded handsomely.
Soon the king's coach came to the meadow. The king asked who the meadow belonged to. The men in the field answered together.
To our lord, the Marquis of Carabas.
The Marquis told the king that this was one of his most bountiful fields. He smiled at the princess as he said this, for he too had fallen in love. The master cat, who went on before, met with some reapers and announced to them,
"Good people, if you tell the king that this field of corn belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, the reward you receive will be well worth your troubles."
The king, who passed by the field soon after, demanded to know to whom the field belonged. They all replied together,
To the Marquis of Carabas.
The king was very pleased that the Marquis was such a wealthy man. As they passed field after field, the reply was always the same. It belonged to the Marquis of Carabas. Puss came at last to a large castle whose master was a wicked ogre. All the lands that Puss had passed before belonged to this mean ogre, and not, of course, to the Marquis of Carabas. Puss had heard of the terrible powers that the ogre possessed, but he knew that he must enter the castle if his plan was to succeed. Slowly, he walked up to the door and knocked. There was no answer. Suddenly, the door swung open. Puss did not see anyone standing inside. He quietly crept through the entrance and found himself standing in a splendid room. No sooner had he done this than the door slammed shut behind him. He turned to see the ogre standing there with a wicked grin on his face.
I'm glad you arrived in time. I was just going to sit down for dinner. Would you care to join me?
Why, thank you. What are you serving?
It's going to be a great feast, and my main course will be roasted Puss in boots.
He began to walk toward Puss, but the cat was not frightened, for he was sure his plan would work.
Noble sir, I will gladly become part of your meal, if only to disprove what I have heard.
Tell me what you have heard, but make it quick, for I am very hungry.
There are many people who believe that you have no powers at all. In fact, they think you are quite harmless.
This made the ogre very angry.
It's not true. I will show you what powers I have.
Suddenly, there was a puff of smoke. And standing before Puss was a fierce lion. As soon as the ogre changed back to himself again, the cat spoke.
I wish to take no offense, but turning into something big is no trick at all. Children do that when they grow up to become adults. No, I would say that real magic would be to become small, like a mouse.
I will show you this one trick, but then I am going to eat you.
Again there was a puff of smoke. And where the ogre had been was a small mouse running around on the floor. Puss wasted no time at all. He pounced on the mouse and ate him up in one bite. Meanwhile, the king came near the castle of the ogre. Puss heard the noise of the coach and ran outside to meet it.
Your Majesty is welcome to the castle of my lord, the Marquis of Carabas.
The king was astounded. This was the finest castle in the kingdom.
Let us go inside.
The Marquis gave his hand to the princess and followed the king, who went inside first. They passed into a great hall where they found a splendid meal awaiting them. The ogre had prepared it with roasted Puss in Boots in mind for his main dish. But everyone agreed that the meal was wonderful, especially without Puss in it. His Majesty the King was very fond of the Marquis of Carabas, and seeing that his daughter was in love with him, asked if they desired to be married. The Marquis, making a low bow, proposed to the princess, and that very day they were married. Puss became a great lord and rewarded all those who had helped him with his plan. After that, he never ran after mice again, except for exercise.